across the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. 5 Live Breakfast
With Nikki Campbell and Rachel Burden.
It's 8:37. Now, the first ever research into the joint enterprise law in England and Wales shows it's been successfully used in more than 40% of murder cases in the last 8 years. The study by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism also found many legal experts are concerned about its use. Our legal affairs correspondent is Clive Coleman.
It's used really as a prosecuting tool so that you can throw the net over a group of people, as you say, even though they may have played very different roles. As long as you can prove that in some way they were in it together, it's very, very powerful in that it enables you to do that, but it is controversial because some believe it enables you to prosecute people who are simply too remote on the peripheries of a particular crime.
Well, Casey Kelly's sister Laura is currently serving a 13-and-a-half-year sentence for murder. She was sentenced under this joint enterprise law. Joseph Kotrie Monson is director of Mary Monson Solicitors. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Casey, first of all, well, tell us about how your sister was involved in this murder.
Laura she went to a pub one night with her boyfriend and his friends was there, and it started over an argument over a taxi with Laura, her boyfriend, and his friend, and a different group of males. The males asked them to get out of the taxi, so Laura was getting out, and as she was getting out, this guy pulled her out of the taxi and threw her to the floor. So obviously from then, Laura's boyfriend tried to stop him and pull him off of Laura. The fight broke out. Laura was scared, she was frightened, she was panicking. She lost her shoes, she'd been shoved, numerous of times, and basically she played no part into the male's death, and she's now serving 13 years and 9 months in prison for nothing that she did or played any part or contact.
What she says happened was that she was in a different part of the car park when the two men that she'd been with, they'd gone off and armed themselves, hadn't they? And then came back and attacked this other man.
Yeah.
However, the court also heard that she was directly involved from the beginning, that she was one of those who was there starting the fight, and that perhaps if she hadn't been involved, that the victim, Andrew Ayres, might still be alive today.
No, that's not right. Like I say, Laura, she's only a little petite woman, and when there's 6-foot men pulling her out of a taxi, drunken men pulling her out of a taxi and throwing her to the floor, that's completely wrong.
Well,
Laura played no part.
Just so our audience know, that's what the appeal court judge, Lord Justice Thomas, said about this.
Yeah.
And it was a brutal murder, wasn't it?
That's what they say, yeah.
She, I know, has said that she might not go for another appeal. Why would that be? Well,
none of us really expected Laura to go to prison, especially for this amount of time. She did appeal once, and she actually travelled down to London. She got past the first judge, which it's meant to be really difficult, and then she got to a second judge. She got past that second judge, and when she got to the third, it got knocked back. So Laura's, her hopes had been shattered. So I think now she's scared of getting her hopes up again to it be shattered again. Like, I have asked Laura if she would appeal again, and she said that if she were to do that and she didn't get anywhere, it'd just be like starting it all from beginning again.
Yeah. We should point out this man was killed by men who were armed with knuckle dusters, CS spray, and a medieval flail with a ball and chain.
Yeah. But the male that actually did kill Andrew Ayres, he was the one that actually killed him, and he went to the police station the day after and handed himself in and said, "I've killed him." So why you know, when somebody's admitted it, is Laura serving 13 years and 9 months.
Casey, thank you very much for telling us about Laura's case. Well, Joseph Kotrie Monson then, I know you probably won't want to comment specifically on that particular instance, but how concerned are you about the high number of cases being convicted under joint enterprise at the moment?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think, Rachel, that anybody would deny that individuals should be held accountable for their own actions. What many lawyers have a real problem with, because we see it in these cases all too often, is that the law has such a blunt way of dealing with people who are in a supporting role at the scene. You know, nobody would deny that somebody who was present, perhaps as backup for bravado, should be punished perhaps for that role.
That used to be accessory to murder or something like that, didn't it? Does that not still apply?
What's happened is in the last 20 years, an old law of joint enterprise, as I think we might have heard earlier in the story from your colleague Clive, an old law of joint enterprise, which really relates to sedition and revolution 300 years ago and fears of insurrection. That's now being adapted in an evolutionary sense. That's now been adapted to murder cases to mean that if you're there present at the scene, you're not just a co-conspirator in the old Guy Fawkes sense. You're somebody who is equally liable, or at least, if not in sentencing, equally liable. Certainly you're in for those tough sentences. And we're talking about young people, often where they might not necessarily have known all of the plan of what was going on, but through bad judgment are pulled along into the actions of a main offender, where they end up serving at 20, at 19, at 18 years old. These young people end up serving 15, 20, 30-year sentences. And many lawyers, you know, we're involved in these cases, but we feel a sense of disquiet about them because it's soft capital punishment. And of course, because the law is so strict in this regard, as lawyers in the Crown Court, we're not arguing with the law. What we find ourselves doing is trying to distance our client using all the evidence and really making sure that, or trying to make sure that the right swing or the right flavour of the evidence comes across to the jury, to the extent that they think, well, you know, maybe our client wasn't involved in that way, because we all know if the jury make their mind up, if the client was involved in the way that's described by the prosecution, these sentences are horrible and swingeing.
Thank you very much for your time. We ought to read the statement from the Justice Minister, Damien Green, who said joint enterprise law has enabled some of the most serious offenders to be brought to justice. We have no plans to change the law in this area.